So, lovely. Thank you for that, Laura. So, Debbie, can I ask you to introduce yourself as well? You don't need to spend as long as Laura spent because you probably got not got as much to explain about your friendships and liaisons with these lovely people on the screen. But
Oh, I don't know. I'm sure I could go even longer if I wanted to, but that's not why we're here. So yeah, hi everyone. I started my NLP journey just over 10 years ago. So yeah, brilliant.
oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, and that's when I was still living out in Nairobi in Kenya.
Mhm.
And before I left, I did my master practitioner. I never wanted to get into all the training and stuff. But in terms of havening, that journey, I did the training just over 2 years ago. I've with Stephen Travers.
Mhm.
Um, and that training gave me, yeah, great insight because I also trained in EFT. So I do a mix and match, as Laura said, in terms of what the client needs. However, I'm finding that havening is actually turning out to be my go-to. A lot of the people I work with are anxious or depressed, etc.
Mhm.
And it's really easy. So you can just sit there and get them to do, and far easier than telling them all the different tapping points, etc., which can sometimes cause even more distress because then they're getting worried about, am I doing it right? Am I on the right point, etc.
Mm.
So yeah, mix and match just depending on what happens. And in terms of NLP, then I often find if I'm working with phobias, etc., they're actually doing the havening in addition to the fast phobia technique. So yeah, put them all together.
Absolutely. And that's something that Paul McKenna, who's been mentioned earlier, does all the time. He kind of, I'm not an expert in hypnotherapy or in NLP by a long chalk, but I'd seen him blending three at least different techniques, havening, NLP, and hypnotherapy together. So yeah, sorry, Debbie, I didn't mean to cut across you there. Was there anything else you wanted to add to that?
No, you all
No,
know I'm Swansea way. So yeah, I'll see you in Cardiff.
fantastic. Um, as Laura was saying earlier, thank you for that, Debbie. You've all got, I'm sure, huge expertise and experience in all sorts of different areas. And Laura was saying, it's good to learn. I'm a firm believer that I learn off the people on the course as well, because you've got different experiences, you've got different styles, you've got different approaches, and have worked with all sorts of different types of people. So please do share your experience. That will enrich the course even more. And so I look forward to hearing about your exploits and experience, and even if you're brave enough to say things that didn't work as well, because that's always useful to know as well. Stuff that you kind of, oh, I tried that, didn't work too well for a particular reason. It's not down to you, but it's down to the circumstance maybe. Right. Well, let's go around the screen then, and just if I'm going to have a little buzzer thing now, so we keep to time. So I'm going to get my little uh, time thing. But does anybody want to go first, just to introduce themselves, a little bit about yourself, background, what you'd like to do with Havening, and anything else you want to add to that? Anybody want to stick their hand up and be brave enough to go first? Ah, well done, Phil. Fantastic. Right. So I'm gonna put 2 minutes on the clock, Phil, if that's all right.
Go
And
for it. Yeah.
let me just get down to. Oh, I've put 2 hours. Let's not do that. Let's put two
Please don't. No,
2 minutes
no,
instead.
no. I know I can go on a bit, but 2 hours, I was pushing it. I'll
You
switch everybody off by then.
well, as I get to know you a bit better, Phil, I might be able to gauge whether you could do 2 hours or not. But fantastic.
Randy,
Right.
I'll try and keep my voice high for you because I know it'll switch you off.
Right. The floor is yours, Phil.
Okay, I'm Phil Hanlon. I'm a master coach, master practitioner. I work out of Cardiff. I did my master's back in 2022, back end of 2022, with Laura, of course. And life has never been the same since, I've got to say. Yeah, I love what we do. Love the change that it brings to people. Just fits with everything that I believe in trying to contribute and help people to get away from any type of pain in their lives. And that's really where my passion is. As far as havening is concerned, I came across havening, first of all, several years ago with Tony Burgess. I'm sure you'll know him.
Yeah, I know Tony very well. Yeah.
Tony actually did the demonstration in a demonstration night on me.
Okay.
With the S Group in Cardiff, the S Group that meets for the Tony Robbins attendees.
Uh-huh.
And he worked on something that was very, very raw for me, and I couldn't prove it at the time that night, but yes, yeah, the next morning I could, and it was absolutely incredible, the transformation. It just took something that was an incredibly traumatic part of my life and turned it around massively, which I was very, very grateful for. Then when, of course, Laura said, guess what we're doing? I went, I'm in. I know what this is about. I know how this feels. I know how it can feel to the clients. So yeah, definitely all over it.
Brilliant. Thank you. Is there anything specific you'd like to get out of the training? Obviously, you want to learn about havening. I understand.
Well, as you'll see, I'm a big one for a certificate. So yeah, a nice certificate to go on my wall. That would be nice.
I think that can be arranged. Yeah. Okay. All right. There's two actually, because I will supply certificates for all of you anyway for coming along to the training. But once you're certified, you get a really lovely certificate.
Very nice. Okay. No, I mean, to be honest with you, I'm just incredibly open-minded about the whole thing, and I want to get as much as I can out of everybody's stories, everybody's involvement, everybody's histories with it, and yours. I'll be just, you said ask questions as we go along. Believe me, I'll ask questions.
Yeah, please do. Please do.
Yeah, and I'm just really looking forward to it all. Really am.
Fabulous. Brilliant.
I think it's just, as you said before, it's another tool in our armor.
Yeah.
And if we've got more things that are practical that we can get on and use straight away with a client that's going to make an impact, like I know it did with me, then that's good. That's good for me.
Fabulous. All right. Thank you very much for that, Phil. Who would like to go second? Any hands going up? Brandy, floor is yours.
I can go. So it's done. So I'm Brandy. I've been doing the same training with Laura. I don't even know. I think I started in 2021, and around that year I finished the master or something like this. As Phil said, life has never been the same. Everything is changed. And in a good ways, like even in the bad times in my life, I know where to go and I know which tools to grab. I'm also an EFT practitioner. And as Debbie was saying, it helps. But sometimes people are stressed. What do I do? And even me, I get a bit stressed. Do I know what to say all the time when I tap all the points? And with havening, I did the introduction in January, and I was not interested. I have enough. I know enough. I don't need something else. However, since January, things happen in my life, and I thought I need something again, maybe to regulate myself that I can do home without anyone's help. And in a strange way, a little story. A few years ago, 1 year ago, when I was employed, I used to work in HR and then with few people in the office, and I used to go and massage their backs, like here. At the end, I was keep doing this on their arms, and everyone was like, and talking like nonsense, very basic things, but everyone was not talking about the massage. Everyone was about this, about me doing this, and it was something that it was instinct, I think, or maybe I saw somewhere at some point. But yeah, and I thought, oh, that helps in a different way that we don't expect.
Brilliant. All right, thank you for that. And we'll come back to instinct later, Brandy. Thank you for that. Is there anything specific you'd like to get out of the course? Any specific questions that you've got?
No, maybe exactly as Laura said, something to have at the beginning of any coaching, something to regulate emotions for a client, or just to give, okay, this is where we start and then we go from there.
We'll certainly have that for you. Fantastic. Thank you, Brandy. Right. So who would like to step up next? And that's Jackie. Welcome, Jackie.
Sorry. Hi everyone. So I'm Jackie. I know everybody apart from Debbie on Laura's NLP courses. I think I did them in lockdown and then with all three of everybody. So I was one of Laura's case studies, and I did the whole, oh my God, what have you done to me scenario. A bit like when somebody does fast phobia to you, it's a bit like, oh my God, I know what you've done, but I don't know what you've done, and I need to know more about this. So I've done lots of different training, NLP, kinetic shift, and everything else. And I'm currently a volunteer in a local prison.
Okay.
So I've been up there since the back end, I'd say the lower end of 2022. And I think havening, what I want to get out of it is the fact that a lot of the prisoners, the first thing they need is emotional regulation, and sometimes they haven't got the words and they don't know what to say or how they're feeling. So I do a lot of NLP with them, tapping. I've done MBIT and different things like that. So breathing techniques, mindfulness is a very good tool. But I think if you've got something that, like Laura says, wipes out that emotion quickly, I think it's going to benefit the guys in the prison massively. I also cover in schools twice a week. So I've dealt with some very complex children, again, who haven't got the vocabulary or the words. They just scream and shout and throw themselves on the floor, trash classrooms. So I think something like this, even if obviously I'll have to check whether I can be hands-on, and hands-on as in rubbing their arms to calm them down, I think would be a brilliant tool. So I'm coming at it from both ends of the spectrum, from children, my own personal benefit to add to the toolkit, plus dealing with prisoners.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Yeah, the only time I've used it in prison so far, I was in Lincoln Prison last year and did some work with actually with the staff there, not the inmates, but I'm hoping to go back and work with inmates. And yeah, with children, doesn't matter what age actually that you work with, havening can apply right across the room. So I think you'll find this really, really useful. Brilliant. Thank you, Jackie. So who's next? Wendy.
Hello.
Hi.
So I'm Wendy. I'm oh God, I was one of Laura's students back during COVID, those dreaded days, and I became master coach in, I think it was 2021. It was on the same one as Brandy, so whenever that was. I'm currently a senior HR manager, but I'm starting to put together my coaching business as well. So I'm just acquiring as many tools as possible. What I've found useful with NLP, although I don't, and I've got strict rules about using hypnosis and anything like that in work, but just the language I use on a day-to-day basis. But what I've noticed in work is that there's been quite a lot of mental health issues. So much so, and unfortunately, I did lose a member of my team to suicide literally a couple of months ago. And so I feel that people are naturally drawn to me for some strange reason, and however I can help them and whatever tools that I have would be really, really useful. So I first discovered havening again. Paul McKenna's name comes up again. So I went on his online Change a Life course, I think it was, back towards the end of last year. I can't remember if it was October or November.
That Mind Valley one?
Sorry?
Was that the Mind Valley one?
It was Mind, Body, Spirit. It was through them.
Okay.
So yeah, it was in London, but they did an online link up to it. And so I'd not heard of havening But I saw this example of, you pulled a lady from the audience and she had such trauma from like 8 years ago. And I was blown away with how quickly he was able to, you know, she was so angry. She'd lost a baby, one of her twins, through some medical negligence. And she was very, very angry, very, very grief stricken still. And how the change in her in such a short space of time was, oh my God, I was like, oh wow, I need to know I need to know what all this is about. So that was my first taster of it, and obviously I was one of Laura's case studies then, so I just find it absolutely fascinating. So yeah, here to learn as much as possible.
Fabulous. Thank you, Eddie. Bro, is there anything specific that you want to get out of the course? Anything if there isn't,
anything and everything, basically.
Anything. Oh, that covers everything then. That's all right. Bro. So I think it's Jen. I think we're going to Jen next, aren't we?
And I'm going to apologise because my internet keeps going up and down. It's
Oh,
worked all day. It's worked all day, but I might freeze, which is good timing as far as I'm concerned. Hi, I'm Jen. So similar to everyone else, did my master practitioner. Actually, I think we were the first class back after COVID, if I remember rightly. And my background's HR as well. Recently, I handed my notice in, and I am now starting my own business working with neurodivergent individuals. So coaching people with autism, ADHD. So when I saw this, I had no idea what it was really, but Laura posted about it. I had a little look into it. I thought that's interesting. I'm going to sign up for a case study. And we did it. And I was instantly hooked because I was just like, wow, I can see how when you like look at autism and self-regulation and all the rest of it, I can instantly see how this would be really helpful and useful. From a stimming point of view as well, like to calm yourself down in the moment. I could tell that would be really good, and it worked on me a treat. And then, like we said, and like everyone's described, I think it's like about getting someone back into a more resourceful state so they can make better choices. And there's lots of work that you do as a coach when you're working with neurodivergent individuals on that stuff because of the emotional dysregulation. So it's perfect for that. And I'm really looking forward to, and I didn't even think about the word neuroscience. That's awesome for my marketing as well. So
good stuff. Brilliant. You might find it interesting to know, Jen, that I trained last year. There are 2 ladies who run a college in the northeast of England. It's specifically for people with autism and ADHD. So one of the ladies actually runs the college. The other one is lady has autism herself, and she's one of the tutors. And they have had such wonderful results. So yeah, you'll all get the opportunity to meet these people. You know, if you choose to come along to something I do every month, I invite everybody I've trained to come along and just share experiences, challenges, whatever there is. It's a once a month thing. But those particular ladies are doing just superb things. I've worked with a variety of autistic people. Don't have huge experience in autism, if I'm honest, from a Havening point of view, but there are so many different opportunities to help. I've mainly worked with young people with autism and ADHD, but yeah, certainly has its place there as well. Brilliant. Fabulous. So that is everybody, isn't it? Yes. I'm just checking my screen, making sure we haven't left anybody out. Brilliant. So
Mark, sorry, just one thing that just pops into my head listening to everybody talk and thinking about our toolkit and everything else. We don't, in our existing toolkit, have anything specifically that lends itself to grief. And grief is something that I know, obviously, Brandy, you've very recently experienced. And grief isn't something that we particularly cover in our toolkit. Now, post the event and things like that, you could consider timeline therapy, you could consider doing fast phobia on the event. You know, there's other ways we could help, but there isn't anything specifically in our toolkit on grief. So that was just something that popped into my head because someone was asking me about this yesterday, actually. How do you handle grief? And I said, well, you know, there are ways I can go round it, but there isn't anything specifically in our toolkit for grief and people that are in the immediacy of grieving. And I was just thinking then, as the guys were all talking, that, I mean, everything to my mind absolutely lends itself to it, because you down regulate the immediacy of the emotion that someone's experiencing and that kind of stuff. Yeah, if there's any particular experience just at some point over the duration of the course, if there's any particular experience you've got about using it when people are in the grip of grief, when it is fairly, you know, because it's the reality is all of us are going to experience grief in one way, shape or form, whether it's grieving a loved one, grieving the loss of a job, grieving you know, loss of status, you know, all of that. And I just think grief is a fascinating emotion. Yeah, just something to throw into the mix.
Okay, all right, thanks, Laura. Yeah, it's an interesting one, grief. I tend to let people, when it's a personal loss, you know, you've lost somebody very close to you, I tend to let that run its natural course. But I'll talk more detail about that later. However, if there is trauma involved in it, then definitely I'd jump in with havening as soon as possible, because you've got enough going on losing somebody that you love, let alone the traumatic side of things. And I do have, there was a lady who volunteered to be my demo volunteer, just like Camilla's doing later. She came along a while back, and she, and apologies if this is triggering for anybody, but that she lost her husband in really challenging circumstances. And we worked on that as a demo, and I won't go into the detail of it, but we spent about 45 minutes on it as a live demo. And she went from, I think it was about a 10, I can't remember exactly what it was, out of 10 subjective unit distress score. She went down to about a 3, I think it was, within the 45 minutes. And she was so much lighter and brighter at the end. And as I promised her, because it's quite a complex thing, I said, look, if we don't get rid of it all within the time frame that we have available, then I'll work with you in between. And I did. About a week later, we met up, and we cleared out the remaining 3, if you like. And she very kindly did a video, and you can have a look at the video on YouTube, about what happened to her. And it's quite illuminating how it just changed her life completely. She'd lost her husband 15 years previously, and she described it as having a cloud of sadness hanging over her for 15 years. And it was just liberating, absolutely liberating. Phil talked about Tony earlier. Tony's a wonderful guy. And he was my trainer. He's also he's just stepped back from his role as of trainer of trainers. And I was blown away from the first demonstration I ever saw Tony do, which was of a lady who had lost her mum. And it wasn't just the grief, it was the way that she'd been a bit dismissive about her mum's fears about an operation she was going to go through, and unfortunately she never woke up from the operation. So yeah, it's grief you have to be careful with, I think, to some extent, but I'll go into more detail of that later. But it is very, very powerful to do that. So yeah, we'll talk about that. And definitely grief over loss of other stuff. Oh yeah, go for it, big time.
I just think it's a quite pertinent one, you know, because, you know, Wendy's just experienced it at work. I know Jackie's in the throes of dealing with grief in terms of the volunteer role that she's probably got, you know, and I just think it's something that it touches a lot of us. The other thing, which none of the guys mentioned, but again, at some point during the course, some of these guys may at some point end up running workshops or group coaching programs.
Okay.
Where a havening session could be, in my mind, one module that you could put in amongst everything else. So it might be useful at some point, Mark, during the program at some point. I know we're not allowed to run group sessions until we're certified practitioners.
That's right. Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah.
We know that. get the case studies done and out the way. So that's fine. And I have mentioned, I think, to a number of the guys here that once they are certified, that it's okay for them to run small group workshops. But I do think in this day and age, with so many people talking about stress, anxiety and worry, I mean, I've been watching webinars today on it myself, that being able to teach people self-havening in small groups is a great money earner for us, but B, a great skill to build into maybe a 6 or so session group coaching program that some of these guys might run. So at some point, Mark, it's probably worth, if you can, sharing the latter part of the course, what that might look like, or what other people have historically done in terms of those smaller workshops. Because I think, again, it would be great to give everybody here a bit of a blueprint as to this is kind of how other people have been doing it. So I just think it would be valuable to share.
Okay. Yeah, we can definitely talk about that. So no worries. Brilliant. Right, let's get official now. Put my glasses on. Here we go. So I'm going to share my screen, and we'll get on to some of the meat of what we're going through today. So let's. You all seeing the slides okay? Just give me a thumbs up if you would. Fabulous. Thank you very much. So we've kind of done the where you're all from. If you want to ask me about my background, then feel free to. But you've learned a little bit about me before. Most of you've probably seen the video, so probably no need to do that. But feel free to ask any questions if you do have any questions. And I will be bringing in examples of what I've covered in the last 10 years of doing havening, and also what I've learned from other people, because I see hundreds of different case studies. And so, that gives me an insight into all sorts of applications that I personally haven't had experience of, but, can learn a lot from just by, observing and critiquing other people's work. So that's, there's a lot of water under the bridge, as it were. So havening, if you were to summarize havening, I'm a bit of a one-trick pony. So I use havening as a standalone therapy. I know a little bit about lots of other things, but havening is my go-to, and all of these things can be applied. And we're going to talk about the detail of this, a lot more detail later. Complementing with all sorts of other things, as you can see there. And there's really two sides to havening. It originated from the traumatic side of things, because the inventor who I'll introduce you to later, Dr. Ron Rudin, came from a neuroscience background, and he was looking at studying the amygdala and so on. So it came from this trauma response. However, there's the two sides. You've got the trauma dealing with nasty stuff, but there's also the building stuff. Huge amount that we can do, and I'm sure a lot of you will be getting involved in. So, and I think a couple of people have mentioned earlier about building resilience for ourselves, helping ourselves. I use it on a regular basis. I used it yesterday because I had something that popped up that I wasn't expecting. And when you get to know me over the course, you'll see some interesting things that I've used havening for. Some you think, oh, really? You can use it for that? Well, all will be revealed. So before we get into all of that, I thought that you might like to meet Ron Rudin. He's not here in person today, although you can do that. If you go to the conference, you can meet Ron. And he was in London, actually, in November for Paul McKenna's birthday, funnily enough. So he came over from New York, where he's based, to celebrate Paul McKenna's 60th birthday, and they both did a joint session in London, and both did a variety of demonstrations. So I'm going to introduce Ron in video form here. So Ron has, last year he retired as a GP. So I told you he came from a neuroscience background, but he retrained to become a GP, and he's done 40 years in GP practice. And anyway, I'm going to shut up for a moment and let you listen to Ron and sort of just get an appreciation of the guy behind what havening has become.
Hi, I'm Dr. Ron Rudin. I've been an internist for almost 35 years. Seen a lot of stuff. Each day, though, is a new learning experience, and I tell my young doctors, never decide not to see a patient. You will always always learn something new. It is one of the great joys of medicine that the body presents problems in ways which are sometimes truly baffling. And it is the ability to solve puzzles and these things in a non-linear way which makes someone to be a truly great doctor. This approach, which we call havening, which means to put into a safe place, we started around 2002, 2003. It is a technique that uses mostly touch and distraction to generate these electroceuticals, and these electroceuticals alter the way the brain functions. But it is so fascinating because what we can do now is not doable by Western medicine. We can cure illness, not just treat it with medications. We can cure it. And that occurs by a neurobiological process, which is called in very complex terms called synaptic depotentiation, which means we take the on-ramp of this memory, which we bring to conscious awareness, and we block it so that the memory no longer is accessible to us. And once that memory is no longer there, the chronic and inescapable stress goes away. And so we now have access to the brain in a completely different way. It's safe, it's gentle, it's rapid. It's a little art, it has some art form to it because you need to be able to find the historical background in the person's mind. But often once we find this, we can then easily and rapidly remove that inescapable stressor and thus free the individual from the chains of remembrance and hence the pain.
So I like to share that video because you get a sense of kind of what havening is about. It's a very gentle therapy. It's a very gentle approach to things. And I'll reel off a few of the things that Ron talked to you about. And don't worry if you don't understand a few of those at this point, or they're completely new terms, because we will cover all of them. So he talked about solving puzzles, non-linear approaches, and that really is havening. It's coming at it from lots of different angles, and as you learn the different techniques, you'll kind of think, oh, actually, this one might suit that for this reason, and this one might suit that for that reason. So it's kind of using the tools in the box that we talked about earlier and just selecting the right one at the right time. Ron talked about putting people in a safe place. That's where, safe haven, that's where the name comes from, in case you're wondering. Just be glad it's not called amygdala depotentiation therapy anymore, because that's a bit more of a mouthful. But that is what synaptic depotentiation is. And again, don't worry if you don't understand what that is. I had no idea what that meant when I first heard it. Well, oh, what? Oh. I know nothing about biology. So I know a lot more now, and we'll explain that and why. Because of Ron's neuroscience background, he understands what's going on. And we've leaned on a few other areas to get that learning. So I'll explain in a bit more detail later about if you probably come across, or some of you will come across EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. And some of the research that's been on EMDR has fed into havening so that we understand why it works. And we do it slightly different from EMDR, but there are some links. So we'll explain about that as well. And yeah, Ron talked about electroceuticals. I think that's a term he made up, but it kind of sums up things nicely because we have this electricity running through our body. We have chemicals running through our body. So the whole harnessing of the brain waves and the electricity that's running through our system is kind of like a pharmaceutical, if you like. So it's an electroceutical. So that's where that comes from. And the lady in the blue dress, if you remember her, I don't recommend sitting the way that Ron does. Ron does it in his own sweet way. Ron's hugely experienced. He's got massive trust, and but that is a particularly specific filmed situation. So we'll talk about positioning. If you happen to do stuff in person, you don't have to do it applying touch yourself. You can leave it all down to the individual to apply self-havening if they are able to. And again, we'll talk more about when it's appropriate to apply touch and when it isn't, and so on and so forth later. But any questions so far? How are we doing? Oh, Debbie.
Yeah, Ron also talked about curing, which again, I wouldn't suggest that we use those words if we're talking with people either.
Well, yeah, that's a fair point. Ron never ever used to talk about curing. He was always very, very cautious before. And when I first saw that film, it wasn't until I started in the training, actually. I thought you never talked about cures, but this is a lot long, quite a few years into Havening. We're now, we're 2024, and the book that I'll talk about later, When the Past is Always Present, which was the cornerstone of Havening, that was published 14 years ago now. And he mentioned himself, he's been doing it for about 20 years nearly. So, and it hasn't come back. So it's kind of, we've got this permanency about Havening. It is actually a neurobiological process that removes these receptors, which I'll talk a lot more about in detail later. But no, it's a fair point, though. Alrighty. So, any other questions before I move on? All okay? All understandable so far? Fabulous. So, let me go back to that screen. Conscious that Camilla may join us at any time, so we'll switch over to Camilla as and when she joins us. If somebody sees Camilla's joined and I haven't noticed, please do shout, so she's not left languishing. So let's have a look at. In fact, I shouldn't say talk of the devil, should I? Camilla's just joined us, so I'm going to stop there, and I'm going to let Camilla in. Here we go. So, and welcome, Camilla.
Hello.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So, what's it like in Norway this evening?
Dark.
Okay.
It's
not the land of the midnight sun just at this point in time.
Yeah, no, it's been a bit of fresh snow. Not very cold actually currently. So yeah, but some snow forecasted almost every day this week. So it will be an interesting Easter week because it gets really, really busy. But hardly any sunshine on the cards, so we'll see how the week progresses.
Okay, and you like your skiing though, don't you? So I think you'll be a happy bunny, right?
Yeah, sadly, I've only got one day off this week, so I'll be working, not enjoying it as much as I would like. No.
Okay. All right. Well, I don't know how many of the people on the screen that you recognise. You may recognise. I know you know Laura, of course, but Phil's waving, so there's a few people that might know you. Brandy.
Yes. Yeah. Hello there.
So, for those that don't know Camilla, Camilla, just want to give as much of an introduction as you wish to. You don't have to do an introduction if you don't feel comfortable doing so, but since you're all part of the sort of same training environment, you may wish to. It's entirely up to you.
Yes, of course, no problem. So I moved to Norway in November last year after having lived in England for about 18 years. I'm a Swedish Czech originally, so grew up in Sweden. And I embarked on an NLP journey last year. So that's how I got to know Laura and Phil and Brandy. And I'm currently doing my master practitioner course. So I'm in anticipation of second week. It's building up to be very exciting.
Excellent. All right. Well, Camilla's very kindly joined us to be our demonstration volunteer for this evening, and we're going to do something that we call Event Havening, which is the cornerstone of Havening. It was the first one that was published in When the Past is Always Present. What I'm going to ask everybody, apart from Camilla, to do, please, is to turn your cameras off, please, if you would. And that way, it just looks as though it's just me and Camilla on screen. And if you're not familiar with the button, it's just on the left. Stop video should be on bottom left, down there somewhere. If you're struggling, I can turn it off from my end, but it might be complicated for you to turn it back on again, but I can turn that. I'm just going to find it. There we go. So for the benefit of everybody else, I know we've had a brief chat with this before. For the benefit of everybody else, Camilla doesn't need to say anything about whatever it is that bothers her. So I'm going to leave it completely up to her to talk about as much as she wishes to share. And I know you said you were happy with sharing, but you still don't have to if you've changed your mind at all.
No, I'm happy to share.
But the purpose of the demonstration event, Hayden, is that we've picked an event that Camilla found distressing previously, and the process that we'll go through is just briefly. I'll ask Camilla to think about it. She'll rate that on a score, and then we'll apply something called Havening Touch, which I'll demonstrate in a second. And then we'll work through it and hopefully bring that feeling down to something that's either far more manageable, or maybe able to do even better than that and get rid of it. So we'll see how much we can achieve with the time that we have available. But when we get into it, I'm just going to practice or show you the Havening Touch that needs to be applied, Camilla. When I ask you to do it, please apply this all the time. So
Yep.
The one that somebody was talking earlier about it being like a natural feeling. I think it might have been Brandy. I can't remember who it was, but somebody was saying the touch like this. If you wouldn't mind putting one hand on one shoulder and one on the other, just stroking down to about your elbow, lift up to the top and back down again. That should feel just nice and soothing.
Yeah.
And that's all it is, about the speed that I'm doing it. So you don't need to apply a lot of pressure, just a little bit of light pressure, just so that you can feel it. And that'll generate just a nice soothing sensation. So hopefully that's all okay for you, Camilla.
Yep.
And then the other one is if you gently stroke your cheeks like that, just about this sort of speed, just a light touch. You can also do under the eyes if you prefer that, or you'd like to complement it with that. You can also do the forehead. If you really feel like it, you can do that as well. But a lot of people who have hair
Yeah.
don't tend to do that one. There's also one that Ron Rudin, the originator of Havening, does as well, which is just little 3 fingers, just as well.
Okay.
So again, you can do that how you see fit. Just change it around. Some people do a sort of a heart shape like that, and that works a lot very well for some people. Others just like to do that, or they do that, or they do that, or that.
Okay.
Personally, because I'm follically challenged, I tend to do that because it feels great. But I understand that a lot of people don't want to do that one. And the third one, or third set, I should say, is just the palms together like that. Now, we've talked about a gentleman by the name Paul McKenna. Now, Paul McKenna is a bit of a showman. Now, if Paul McKenna was doing this, he might be going. So you can do that. You can just do that, but it's important that it's the palms together.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. So please do either of those 3, or just move. If your arms get tired, move to the hands. If your hands get tired, or you want to change things around.
Okay. Yeah.
So however you see fit, but it's important that you do it all the time when I ask you to, please.
Yep. Okay.
So we talked also about having some handy things to talk about that were pleasant. So the reason I know that you like skiing is because you like sort of outdoor activities and kind of doing all sorts of exercise. And just looking down my little list here as to skiing, hiking, scuba diving, swimming, that type of stuff. So that's your theme. Because when we're doing the distractions, why not make it pleasant? So that's the purpose of doing it. So,
absolutely.
Again, remember, you don't have to tell me any detail if you don't feel comfortable. But can you give us a headline of what the issue is that we discussed previously for the benefit of the other people on the call?
So I guess I would call it being unfairly accused of trying to cheat.
Yes. Okay, that's lovely. Thank you. And that's perfect actually, because we don't need to go into the detail of it, but people will recognise kind of what's going on as a result. Thank you for doing that. And what I'm going to ask you to do, please, Camilla, is I'd like you to go back to the time that happened, and that was 5 or 6 years ago, I understand.
Yeah, roughly something like that. Yeah.
So what I'd like you to do, please, is connect with that, and if you want to shut your eyes to enable you to do that, please do so. You don't need to. And I'll just give you a moment to connect with that and feelings that are associated with that time when it happened. And you nodding your head, is that you've connected with it already?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And is there anywhere in your body that feels tight or uncomfortable that's related to that at all?
Yeah, that's definitely on my chest.
Your chest, okay.
Mm.
And on a scale of 0 to 10, where 10 would be really, really awful to even think about, 0, it means nothing to you, where would you put the number, do you think?
I would say it's an 8.
About 8, okay.
Yeah.
Clear your mind and start applying whichever healing touch you prefer. So whether that's on the arms and the shoulders or the face or the hands. I won't do it all the time, but please do carry on doing it all.
Yeah.
And let's go skiing, eh? Where's your favourite place to ski in Norway?
It's quite a hard one. I was thinking about New Zealand the other day.
Oh, I'll go to New Zealand. Doesn't matter. It's okay.
Yeah, South Island, not far from Christchurch. There's a Canterbury Range, I think it's called, or something like that. It's really very nice, off piste, just like free skiing. Yeah.
So why is it so spectacular? I've seen Lord of the Rings, so I know it's a beautiful part of the world down there. But is that the reason? Is it because it's the dramatic scenery?
I think because it was purely off piste. There was like no slopes. It was all set up for free riding, and we had a rope lift, so you had to latch on to it with this. We had a harness, and you had this kind of almost like a nutcracker that you had to sling around the rope, and it would tow you up, and then you skied, and it was fresh powder, and it was pretty awesome.
So how deep would the snow be?
I think it was about a foot, maybe more. It was maybe a foot and a half even. Like there was a lot of fresh snow. Yeah.
Okay. So I want you to imagine that you're skiing down the slope. You're having the time of your life. So describe what it feels like when you're going down in that environment. What can you see?
It's a magical sense of freedom. It's utter bliss and hugely satisfying.
Because of what? What are you feeling when you go down?
So there is a flow of the motion of your body with the skis that make you feel like you are kind of surfing in the snow. So there's a freedom, there's a feeling of connecting, but yet being almost, airborne, but you're not. But this is some sort of sense of weightlessness at the same time. You're obviously working hard, but it's a beautiful combination.
Sounds fantastic.
So,
and what are the sort of sounds that you'll hear? Because I can imagine the skis going down, they make quite a distinctive sound.
There is a swooshing sound, and every turn you make, there's obviously like this connection with the snow that you're pushing away, and the wind, and it depends on how fast you're going, but wind in your ears, literally. And I mean, I definitely would have worn a helmet at that time because it was off piste and you're kind of remote. So these days everyone wears a helmet, and I think people ski a bit more recklessly because they have a helmet. But there's a nice it's just very like a sense of freedom.
Well, I want you to imagine that you're swooshing down the mountain, you're hearing the snow cutting through, you're almost flying across it. I want you to feel the cold as much as you possibly can. Feel being there now, the sounds, any smells. Would there be any smells in the air?
No smells, not that I can remember, no.
Okay, and are you in a sort of tree foresty environment, or is it just rocky and you got the snow on the top of the rocks?
It's probably sort of above the tree line, most of it, but some trees a bit further down, but quite open landscape.
And what can you see into the distance?
I think you could, if you were imaginative, you could see the sea. You could see the Pacific, like really, 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 really far away. But maybe more imagining that you could see it than actually seeing it.
And we've been talking about it being dark at the moment. Have you ever skied at night going down the mountain?
Yeah.
So how's that different?
So that's really, it's a special kind of feeling, because your light is you have a head torch, and so all you can see is really what the torch is lighting up.
Yeah.
So that's it's a bit like going diving at night. Again, you can only see whatever you light up, but nothing else. So that's quite I like it. There's a added element of excitement, perhaps. So yeah.
Right, brilliant. Okay, we're going to take a slightly different tack now, and what I'd like you to do is name any town, city, country, continent, whatever you like, beginning with Z, please.
Zambia.
Okay, and what about Y?
Y.
The letter Y for
the letter Y. Yokohama.
Okay,
well,
great.
that's not a country, that's a city. But
No, city will do fine, or a town, or a state, whatever you like. What about? Can you think of one for X? There's a challenge. Maybe a Chinese one or an imaginary one.
Yeah, I was thinking some Chinese city, but I don't. There's some. I can picture it. I can't say it.
Well, I'll tell you what. We'll make it easier for you. We'll go to W instead. Think of something with W, and there's one in New Zealand, of course.
Yeah, Wellington.
Yeah, Wellington doing nicely. What about V?
The Vienna. Well,
Vienna? Yeah, that'll do fine. What about U?
So we've got Utah or Uganda.
Utah? Yeah, excellent. And T?
Tanzania.
Yeah, and S?
Sierra Leone.
And R?
Romania.
And Q?
Quebec.
Quebec, yeah, nice. And P?
Portsmouth.
Lovely. And O?
Oslo.
Oslo, yeah, that's a bit closer to home. And N?
Norway.
Yeah, that's even, that'll do nicely. M?
Mozambique.
Okay, and L?
Laos.
Laos, okay. I thought you were going to say London there, but Laos will do perfectly well. K?
Kentucky.
Yeah, and J?
Johannesburg.
And I?
Indiana.
And H?
Honolulu.
Okay, and G?
Oh, Gothenburg.
Yeah, and F?
Finland.
Okay, E?
Estonia.
D?
Denmark.
And C?
Cape Town.
And B?
Bratislava.
Okay, and A?
Amsterdam.
Okay, very good. All right, let's take a little break there for a moment. And when we started, you thought back to a situation that bothered you from 5 to 6 years ago.
Yeah.
And you gave me an 8 out of 10 for that. And there was a tightness in your chest, I believe. If you try and recall that now, I'll just give you a moment to connect with that again, just see if there's any changes.
And now that I'm picturing the man who was the perpetrator,
yes,
I'm thinking of him, and he kind of seems like a pathetic, funny creature.
Okay, well, that's. I think that's good. I think that's progress. That number. So you gave me an 8 before. Where would the number be?
Let's say, okay, 2.
Okay, all right. Let's see if we can do a little bit better than that, and see if we can get down to where you don't feel anything at all. So if you start applying whichever havening touch you prefer again, whichever suits you best. And so let's go scuba diving this time.
Yeah.
And where's the best place to go scuba diving?
So Sipadan Island or Bunaken Island, both are in the Indonesian,
okay.
So in South China Sea almost. So it's off
Right.
Borneo, on the
Okay.
east coast of Borneo, northeast Borneo.
Yeah.
And Bunaken Island is on the northwest coast of Sulawesi, so it's almost opposite each other, so very close to each other. And you have these atolls where they rise from the sea floor, so they 800 meters depth, you know, and then there's this tiny little island.
Yeah.
So you get a combination of coral, soft coral, small fish, and then huge fish because of the depth of the sea around it. So it's just excellent diving.
And how far down do you go when you do the scuba diving?
So you wouldn't go further than 40 meters
40.
on a normal, like a PADI. If you're advanced or rescue diver, 40 is kind of the limit, because then you are looking at using mixed type of oxygen mixtures with nitrox.
Okay.
Yeah.
And why is it the best place?
I think for me, the best place because of the diversity of the sea life, the colors, beautiful colors of the corals, but also just the weather, and the water is very clear and warm, and it's just like overall, but the abundance of sea life. So it's and the big fish, like you get sharks.
When we're talking big, are they this big or are they this big?
Yeah.
So they're really big.
It's you get big sharks, you get dolphins in the seas there. So it's all the variety, and it's very pretty.
I want you to imagine that you're on a dive.
Yeah.
You might want to shut your eyes to imagine that you're there now, and I'd want you to almost feel the warmth of the water as you glide through. And in your mind's eye, you can see all the different types of coral and fish and shark, dolphin, whatever there is down there. And I want you just to really enjoy that experience. Just look around in your mind's eye. Feel the content that you feel just gliding through, and enjoy. Maybe you can see some sun through the water. Feel that warmth. Breathe in as though you've got your upper lung with you. Just enjoy the experience. If you look around, what would you see?
So I can see coral on one side, and then like deeper blue on the other, where the water is, the expanse of the water.
Yeah.
And there's schools of fish in front of me, and then some bigger fish, some batfish.
So what colours are these fish?
So there's big fish that are sort of silver coloured with huge eyes, and then there's yellow and black ones with these banners, and there's some parrotfish that are like kind of like multicolored, technicolor scheme.
Fabulous. And are any of these eaters? Do you hunt them or fish for them?
No, I would
just look at
admire them in the water.
Yeah.
But I do eat fish, so somebody else will have hunted them and brought them to my dinner table in the evening.
And what's the best fish you've ever eaten when you were at that holiday resort?
Wow. That's really hard. I mean, grouper was really nice.
I've heard grouper's nice. I've never tried it myself. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, there's so many good fish that you can have, and obviously freshly barbecued with just some fresh lime and chilies, something simple. So yeah.
Wonderful. Brilliant. All right. Well, I hesitate to take you away from that lovely, lovely immersion in the ocean, but let's just bring you back to reality for a moment, if I may. And if you were to cast your mind back again, Camilla, to the incident that happened, and got down from an 8 to a 2, And where would you be now if you try and reconnect with that again?
I think it's a 0.
Great. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Well done. Fabulous.
I
And
just,
sorry, go
yeah,
on.
yeah. No, it's just like now I'm like looking at it as a picture. It doesn't have a. It's just like, anybody else. Yeah.
Is it almost as though it's somebody else's history, something like that?
Yeah, it's almost like it's almost as if the actual memory is like faded away. It's just feels much more difficult to actually recall it. Like I still know it's there, but it's not so. I can't actually picture it the same way I did before.
Okay, great. And in terms of how you relate to that now, thinking back to it, what are your thoughts about it?
I think he was probably doing his job.
But not particularly well, maybe?
He might have enjoyed his position of power a bit too much, but yeah, it's I think it's funny how I got so upset about it. Like I really was very upset, but like it's actually yeah, it's I don't know really what to say.
Yeah, he perhaps had a bad day at the office that day and inflicted it on you, maybe. Yeah.
Possible.
Yeah.
So I would still say that I think he perhaps wasn't being as professional as he should have been.
No.
So his behavior, I still wouldn't say it was good.
No.
But I'm not. It doesn't. I don't feel anything. It's more like I'm considering it as a factual. Like I know what happened, but I don't have the same sensation.
And that's that tightness in your chest that you had earlier. Is any of that remaining at all?
No.
No. Good.
Yeah.
Fabulous. Thank you ever so much for allowing me to do that, Camilla. If you're comfortable with it, I'm going to ask everybody else to join us. And are you still okay to answer any questions if anybody has any questions?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you ever so much. So if everybody else would like to turn the cameras back on again, please. And if you've got any questions for Camilla, and she kindly said that she could stay for a little while. So does anybody have any questions for Camilla? Or for me, for that matter? Silence. I wasn't expecting that. Okay. All right. Well, you'll have seen earlier. I sent out to everybody for your information, Camilla, earlier, and for Debbie. I sent out. Oh, right. Jackie can't. I knew this would happen because I turned Jackie's video off. Let me just turn that back on again. So hopefully you're able to start that now, Jackie. Yep, there we go. Fabulous. Yeah, I sent out earlier a protocol of what we do in event havening. So you'll probably have seen me sort of follow. I didn't actually read it as I was doing it. Shouldn't have. So the protocol is to introduce the concept of havening. I've already done that with Camilla beforehand, to be honest. Gave her the opportunity to talk about it if she felt comfortable. And I set the expectations as to, well, hopefully we'll be able to reduce that down. I tend to undersell and under-promise and oversell, do it that way around rather than the other way around. I had some distractions in my back pocket. So Camilla and I talked briefly before about having scuba diving and skiing and various other things if necessary. And I also asked her, is there anything I shouldn't be talking about? Because we don't want to put people in a state of distress. We're just trying to relax them. Tie up working memory. And so anything that, for example, let's say for argument's sake, somebody who'd been a bad player in Camilla's life had gone skiing with her before as well. Now that wouldn't necessarily have been a good choice to go skiing or doing the sabbatical thing. So then we activated by asking Camilla to think about whatever it was that bothered her, to connect with it physically, and that's important. That's part of the neurobiological process, and then try and connect with all of the senses, and that will become much more clear as we go through why that's important. But it just brings it to life and brings all of the things that might potentially be triggers for her in the future from that event, sort of brings them out into the open so we can start to work on those. And we calibrate by doing that subjective unit of distress, apply the Havening touch, and generally I recommend with people that just start to apply about 3 rounds and see how you're getting on. But we check in every so often. And by the way, every time you check in, we're now activating again. So you don't have to ask them to really connect again. Just say, when you think back to that event, what number would it be now? So we're checking all the time. We're doing that, and then we just keep on going until hopefully we get some resolution, which it looks as though we've been successful with Camilla, and we've kind of eradicated things. So, and when you do case studies, there's all sorts of different sections. I won't go through that today. We'll do that on the course, but in Cardiff. But there are reasons why you would go through that, and that's really good for your further understanding, a broader understanding of Havening and different clients and how different clients react in different ways. So so that's essentially what we were doing. And do you have any questions, Camilla, by the way? Didn't ask you if you hadn't.
No, I mean, I kind of perceived the equivalent technique would be sort of how I think from an NLP perspective, a fast phobia, dealing with an event. So I think I get the sort of the principle. It's just a different type of technique. I'd say it's really pleasant.
Good.
So I would say perhaps more pleasant than the fast phobia. But yeah, it's very, very interesting. It's fascinating to sort of how your mind gets distracted.
And the lovely thing is that that's permanent now, because what we've actually done is we've changed the neurobiology, and I won't go into the detail of that yet, but it's something that would provide a signal in your brain to feel rubbish, feel uncomfortable, have that tightness in your chest or whatever it might be. That's now gone. That signal isn't sent any further. So so it won't come back unless you're unfortunate enough to have the same incident happen in some shape or form. It ain't coming back. But, hopefully that's not going to happen. So
well, thank you so much.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome.
I will leave you to it. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to be part of it. And
you're very welcome.
Lovely to see you. Enjoy the rest of your course and have a good evening.
Thank you very much. Thank you ever so much.
Bye.
Take care. All the best. Bye for now.
You too.
So, what a lovely lady. So that was that went from an 8 to a 2, and that was in 14 minutes from start to finish. So that when you have a one-off situation, it can be quicker than that. I mentioned who's the lady who's been in the prisons? That was Jackie, right? When I was in Lincoln Prison, it wasn't an ideal situation, but I was working with the staff there, and they kind of walked around between me and the burger stand and something else that was going on, and I kind of grabbed people and said, "Oh, let me do this on you." And I probably had an average of about 7 minutes with each person, and so I didn't get everybody down to 0. I won't claim that, but I had movement for everybody within the 7 minutes, apart from a couple of people, and there were reasons for that, which I'll go into another time. But the vast majority of people had either a significant drop or at least a little bit of movement. And I did another exhibition end of last year where I had 4 people, and they were all less than 7 minutes, and 3 out of the 4 we got to 0, because they were quite straightforward single events. So event Havening is it's fast, it's gentle, as you've seen, and it's really, really effective. And that is the cornerstone of havening. That's how things started. But now we have loads of other things that complement it. And you don't have to use event havening every time, but I often, especially when you're new, event havening is nice and clean and tidy. And if you can use it, then I'd recommend starting with that a lot of the time when you're new. As you build up your experience and confidence, then start bringing other things in. And that's how the course will develop as well, because we're all going to get to have a go at that a little bit later on. We're going to go into breakout rooms and try things out. So have a think about something that you have as an event that's still kind of, doesn't have to be a big thing. And I'll give you an instance. When I was on my training, I'm very lucky in that I don't believe that I've ever had any really major trauma in my life. But like everybody else, I've had my ups and downs, and things I'm not proud of as well. And I went back to a situation that something I did. I'm not going to share it because there's no need to share it. But it's something I did as a about 14, 15-year-old kid, which I'm not proud of. And every time I used to think back to it, I go, oh, God, did I really do that? Oh, I can't believe I did that. Anyway, so when I did my training, which was in person, I was working with a lady called Nikki, and she said, "You got something you can work on, Mark?" And I said, "Yep." She said, "Do you want to talk about it?" I said, "No." I said, "Okay," and just got rid of it. So when I think about it now, and I'm thinking about it right now, it's just something that happened in my life. And again, I'm not proud of it, but I can't go back and apologize for what I did, because the person that was involved, goodness knows where they are now. And it's not doing me any good to feel guilty, feel rubbish about it. So I've moved on. And there might be something in your life like that. There may not be. Or maybe you've had something in your life right now and you don't have to tell anybody about it. Something's upsetting you for one reason or another based on an event. Maybe it's an argument this morning with a loved one, or somebody's not very well, or it could be anything. So, but if it's a one-off situation, that would be ideal for event haven. You can work on the emotion itself, but I'd like you, if you can, to pick a specific event this time, so you just get used to that experience. So we'll come on to that in a moment. I don't want to go there quite yet, but just start thinking about it. And at the moment, I'm just going to share my slides again. And we're going to move to just having a look again, a little bit of summary of havening. If somebody was to ask you, so what's this havening thing? Okay, here's how you ask them, or it's one way of answering them. It's a set of psychosensory tools to put people in a safe haven where things like traumas, all sorts of fears, phobias no longer cause that emotional distress. And it works on electrochemical changes in the brain. And we use soothing touch. Eye movement is there, and you'll see Paul McKenna use eye movement occasionally. You don't need to, and it's a style thing as much as anything else. And actually, I think Paul McKenna uses more of a distraction technique than actually eye movement itself and the delta waves that it produces. We'll talk more about delta waves later. But you don't have to use eye movement at all. Sometimes it might be useful. Let's say, for example, somebody doesn't have any limbs, which can happen, or they don't feel comfortable with touch, whether it's applied by themselves or by a practitioner. Then there's an argument for using eyes. We'll get into the detail of why we use eyes a little bit later on. We talked about it with Camilla. It's permanent, the change. One thing just to be aware of, and I'm just going to be completely honest with you, you will find in the future that you work on something, and there's a particular type of havening that I'm thinking about, which I won't go into the detail of yet, but you might be working on something and the SUD score will go up. Now, that can happen, but what you'll find is that you've cleared something, or you're clearing something out, but SUD score is going down, but then somebody thinks, or it's connected with another situation, another event, another circumstance, whatever it happens to be, and that's why it goes up. So you've actually reduced down the thing that you're working on, but there's something associated that suddenly, oh, crikey, what about that? And you remember detail. So the change is permanent. We clear out biologically things we call receptors. I'll talk a lot more about that later. So that's where the permanency is. And as you've seen with Camilla, it's usually very quick. Clearly, when you've got much more complex situations, it's going to take longer. And as Ron referred to in that early video, there is an art form to getting in, and there are fast ways of doing it. There are sometimes you have to be a little bit more patient, and the client doesn't know how much there is locked up in a feeling sometimes. So you have to dig a lot deeper than perhaps you weren't expecting to sometimes. But they still don't need to talk about it. And as we are experiencing right now, we can do all this remotely. During lockdown, Havening saved my bacon, effectively, because I could still do something, still could earn some money. I couldn't do my face-to-face stuff. And we talked about this earlier. Self-havening, which we're going to do in the near future, is brilliant just for managing your own situation and even teaching your loved ones as well. I'll say this very quietly, I finally got my wife to do some self-havening, and she's allowed me to do some havening on her. And yeah, if you can pass it on to other people, it's a really lovely thing to show people so that they can down-regulate themselves. And we'll talk about the research that's out there. There's more research going on, but there are 4 British university studies, one very close to a lot of you, down at Cardiff Metropolitan. That's a really interesting study, which I'll talk about later. But we've got King's College London, that was done on ex-military personnel, so people that are suffering largely from PTSD. Cardiff Metropolitan, talk about in a lot more detail later. Nottingham-Trent, not a huge amount we can report on that because that was interrupted by COVID and that's still going on. The Reading one is brilliant for resilience. So again, a variety of different studies, and there's more research happening. Any questions so far? Oh, I've seen there's something in the chat. Let's just see what that is. Oh no, that was the thing that we did earlier. That's okay. All right. Any questions? I can't see you all on the screen, so give me a shout if there is a question. Just unmute yourself and let me know. Otherwise, I shall crack on. How are we doing time-wise? Now we've been going an hour and a half. Again, let me know if you need to have a break. I don't plan to take a break just yet, but if you think, oh, I can really do with a break, then do let me know. So let's crack on for a moment. We'll talk about when we talk about therapies and mental distress, there's psychotherapy, so generally known as talk therapy, psychopharmacology, so taking pills and helping dull the pain, not be susceptible to the great anguish that might be there otherwise. And then havening sits in the touch therapy side of things. And we call it a psychosensory. So we're working with the brain, so that's the psychological bit. And the sensory is that touch that you've already seen that we were applying, or Camilla was applying to herself. And if we just look at some of the things that we can do with havening. I've specifically changed this for you, Laura, that particular slide. Reversing coding, because I understand that you talk about coding rather than encoding. I would normally say encoding, but reversing coding, so things like anxiety disorders, panic attacks, all kind of traumatic memories. PTSD, you'll probably recognize, post-traumatic stress disorder. I prefer to call it injury. And the reason I do that is because when I started working with some veterans, they don't like PTSD being a disorder. So they like the idea of injury because you can recover from an injury. And so I much prefer that term. Looking at low self-worth and depression, phobias. Oh, that's interesting. I haven't quite jumped out of order, but there we go. Phobias is another form of trauma. So phobias fit in there very easily. Addictions, again, I'm just going to be very honest and open with you about what you can do with havening. There's often a biological link with addictions due to a substance being used. And with havening, if you take away the need for that substance to block out whatever the issue is, that's where havening can really work very, very well. But don't be oblivious to the fact, and I'm sure you wouldn't be, that there might be some kind of link to a substance that might need physically being weaning off that substance. Havening will definitely help, and we'll talk more detail about that later. But essentially, if you take away the reason for the addiction will go. So if you take away the root cause, and that's what havening is brilliant at, taking away the root cause of why you have the issue in the first place. Chronic illness. Now, we had a very, very small little demonstration of that with Camilla, where that tightness in her chest, I wouldn't call that great pain by any means, but that slight discomfort that she felt, that can be hugely magnified in other instances. It wasn't in Camilla's case, but there are people that are walking around with chronic pain right now in what feel like injuries and just aches and pains that actually are linked to trauma. And if you can take away the origin of that trauma, magically, in inverted commas, the pain goes. Like, it frequently goes. I'm not going to promise it's going to go. And I'll talk more about things like fibromyalgia, for example, quiescent Crohn's disease, all sorts of things that I've helped people with. And there are lots of other examples that people around the world have helped, where you can do amazing work and people don't believe you can take away pain with havening. Well, only if it's linked to traumatic experience. So if you bang your leg, sorry, havening is not going to do a lot for you. However, if you banged your leg because a cyclist came up your backside and you didn't know they were there, it's terrifying, then the traumatic side of that, which might exacerbate the pain, we might be able to help with. But you're still going to have an injury that unfortunately has just got to heal. Now, allergies is a strange one. And again, I wouldn't particularly promote havening to take away an allergy issue. It's all about the traumatic encoding bit. So if you're in a field which had linseed, for argument's sake, growing in a field, and something awful happened to you in that field, it might be that the smell, the colour of the linseed flower, they only flower, I think, once a harvest, don't they, linseed? But something to do with that, maybe even having it on your skin, the oil that comes out of linseed on your skin, that could, I say could, it doesn't have to, but it could be linked to the traumatic experience that you have in that field, and as a result, you have an allergy to it. Now, if you take away the traumatic event, it's highly likely that the allergy will disappear. But again, you've got to be careful with these things. I'm just talking about the whole range of things that havening can cover. You may never come across somebody with an allergy that you can help with havening, but it might be a byproduct of something else that you do. On the building and coaching, building and growth side, you've got, of course, coaching. So these two sides that I talked about, the rubbish stuff, getting rid of that, and then building on the other side. This is fantastic to help people just coach away personal barriers that they don't think they're quite capable of getting to in business, in a workplace, things that they don't believe they can achieve. Havening can help people get there, take away those self-limiting beliefs, and really help in terms of encouraging high performance and getting to that place. Used in leadership development, I've run leadership training programs before now and incorporated havening into some of those on a one-to-one situation. I've been coaching people, worked very, very well. Relationships, of course, you can use it to dial down your response to certain things, which helps you to develop relationships much better. Loads of different applications. So we have within the psychiatry, yeah.
Oh, sorry, just on that, I think one of the ways I have described it, and I think it's helpful for people to think about it, is that the two sides of havening, as I think about them, are on the one hand reducing emotional distress. So that's your phobias, that's your anxieties, that's your worries, and all of that stuff. And that's stuff that we would class more as a therapy thing. And on the other side, I think building resilience and a resilient mindset is the other half, as I would describe it. So I'm just thinking about some of the corporate work that some of us do, to being able to talk about havening, being able to help people become more resilient and developing a more resilient mindset, and setting them up positively for the future, I think is how I would describe the other half. And I just think that's how I would do it. And I think for those of us in the corporate world, I think that probably fits quite nicely in terms of how you would describe it. So if you were putting together a leadership program for resilient leadership, or you were putting together a program to help employees become more resilient as a result of experiences at work, then I would talk about resilience. That's my personal thing.
Okay, thanks, Lauren. I've just seen that Jackie's got a question in here. Are there any contraindicators we need to be aware of from a health perspective? Does that come from a particular experience, Jackie? Is there something a bit more that you can explain behind the reason for the question?
I think one of the things I was thinking of, obviously with hypnotherapy, if you've got somebody that suffers of epilepsy, then you would not then be doing hypnotherapy. So if you've got people that you're trying to sort of build emotional resilience with them, are there any contraindications we need to be aware of from a health perspective that we'd need to question before we do ABC? Is there anything else we need to know from a health point of view?
Yes, that's a good question. I think particularly when you're talking about medical conditions, clearly you need to be asking, have you seen your GP? Have you talked about this with the GP? Particularly when you talk about, if somebody's talking about pain, well, don't come to me first. If you've got pain, go to the doctor, and we've got a real insight into how that works from Ron Ruden's experience, because 40 years as a GP, we've got lots of really good case studies that he's had somebody in front of him. I'll give you one example. There was a lady that came to him who had pain in her hand, around her wrist, and I'll talk more detail about this later, but it was nothing to do with an injury, recent injury anyway. But because of Ron's experience, he took x-rays, he examined her, there was nothing to do with pain. And then he started looking down, well, what else could it be? And he started asking questions. So always find out if there's a medical history, and the medications that people are on. Is there anything else that we need to be aware of? Clearly. So, you need to check with people that they're not using you as first aid, and you're actually first aid is okay, but not the be all and end all. You want, as far as I'm aware, none of you are qualified doctors. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but you need to go to a general practitioner to start with, or hospital if it's an emergency, if there's something physically that's going on, and and work backwards from there. If I often get people coming to me saying, I've tried everything, can you help? And they have been down the health route. They've had this x-ray, that investigation, this internal examination, they've had the scalpel out and they've dug around, and they haven't got the answer yet. So when that's the case and nobody knows what another situation is, then havening may well be something you can use very effectively. Does that answer your question, Jackie?
Yeah, I just think a lot of the guys I deal with are quite symptomatic. Healthcare is like a blue frog in prison. You just can never get a doctor's appointment, same out as it is now. And they develop in symptoms, whether it's pain or vertigo or whatever. Healthcare not doing anything if they can get an appointment. So they may not be aware of if they have an underlying health issue. So it was just to cover myself, really, to think that if I'm dealing with them and then somebody goes, oh, but they've got this, they might not know they have a condition, because some of them have been in for years and may not have seen any health care.
That's a really, really challenging situation, isn't it? Where they haven't got brilliant healthcare provision. So you can't, you know, it's not even that we can go out and complain that the waiting list is long. It's just there isn't access. I think it's worth just reminding ourselves that with havening, it is a very gentle therapy. So we're not putting people through all sorts of uncomfortable situations. Sometimes from a point of view, from a mental point of view, there might be some challenging situations, clearly. But we're not, you know, we're not probing around. The touch that we have is very, very gentle. So that there is very little that can go wrong. But I would still check with, you know, if there is a GP referral already, if there's, you know, if they've got some experience of being in the hospital system, or you know, family's got a history of their particular complaint or anything linked to it. You know, normal sort of questions. But yeah, hope that answers your question.
Mark,
yeah, that's great. Thank you.
It's probably worth clarifying, because obviously contraindictions for us in hypnotherapy has quite a specific definition, which you might not be familiar with.
I'm not familiar with
no. Exactly. So contraindictions, I can't even say it now, contraindication, I can't even say the blooming word. Anyway, you know the word I'm trying to say. Basically means, are there any specific reasons why you couldn't or wouldn't do havening with someone? So as Jackie said, in hypnosis, we would absolutely be saying that hypnosis is not suitable for someone that has epilepsy that is triggered by prolonged periods of relaxation. So that's a no-go. We would also say in hypnotherapy, that you absolutely shouldn't be hypnotizing anybody under the age of 18 unless you've got permission from the guardian and a DBS check in place. We would absolutely be saying that you shouldn't be hypnotizing people that have got complex mental health issues like schizophrenia, psychosis, and all of those things. So there are a specific list of conditions that a client might have where we would not intervene and we would not work with that client. So contraindications basically mean, are there any reasons why we couldn't or wouldn't do this or are prevented from doing so? I've not seen, Jackie, any list in anything I've seen that there is a specific list of contraindications and times you shouldn't. What I would say to you is use your nurse as an experienced professional and don't get involved in psychosis, don't get involved in schizophrenia. Don't get involved in any of the complex stuff that you wouldn't naturally. But I just thought it's worth clarifying, Mark, because what we're talking about here is maybe not a term that you're used to. So there's kind of that angle to it, as well as the angle that you've been discussing, which is the physical GP part.
Yeah. Thanks for clarification there.
If I can add in as well.
Sure, Debbie.
One of my colleagues in Nairobi asked me to work on her son because he kept having mood swings, etc. So in my intake with him, I was asking him if he's been diagnosed with anything, and yeah, he was bipolar. So I'm saying, no, I'm not going to work with you because I can't cure that. Go and take your meds.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for that, Debbie. Key thing that comes out from Havening HQ is stay within your scope of practice, essentially. You know, and that's kind of echoing what you said earlier, Laura, about, you know, don't touch stuff that you wouldn't normally touch. You know, if you're not a medical expert, you don't go down that route. If you're not a psychiatrist, you don't go down the bipolar, for example, that Debbie's talking about, or psychosis and so on. So yeah, we're trying to help people who've had traumatic experiences. If they've got something that is way more complex than that, then yeah, I think you need to use your judgment and experience to tackle something that you think is within the scope of practice. As you get more experienced, you might decide that you could look into something, but you know, it's again back to scope of practice. I won't talk about details now because it's a bit early to do so, but there are other things that I'll mention later on where people have had remarkable relief using Havening. But if it's not your area of interest, not your specific expertise, then you need to get, insight into what particular conditions are and make sure that there's no chance of doing any harm, put it that way. And there is little with Havening, frankly. So, alrighty. I hope that clears up that as much as we possibly can as far as contraindications is concerned. That's the correct terminology. So let's move on and back to the jolly old slide. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but just to, again, see where this all fits in, we've got a variety of different psychosensory therapies. I'm sure you've heard of all of these different types of therapies. And these are what I would call non-exposure. We're not actually working on an underlying issue in terms of perhaps a mental health issue, thinking about what caused the issue in the first place. However, the exposure side would be Havening, where we do connect with it. Things like TFT, thought field therapy, EFT, very, very associated, very linked to that, or EMDR. So those would be the exposure side of things. And again, just thinking very broadly about what Havening is, we're talking about electrochemicals. We are electrochemical beings, and I think it was Ron that actually said this. There is no chemistry without electricity, no electricity without chemistry. And just as a bit of I think, a fascinating insight to that, to prove that there is this connection. My apologies to you for one section of this video, but it's an old video. It's from the 60s, and if you don't want to watch it, please look away now. But it's not particularly graphic. There is manipulation of Ball's brain here, okay? But the reason I'm showing you this is to show you how far we've come, and to show what electrochemical beings we are. So I'm going to introduce you to a Spanish doctor, Dr. Delgado, work that he was doing, pioneering work quite a few decades ago. And I think it's fascinating, but it's only a very short video, and have a chat when we finished it. So here we go.
Electronic mind control research is not new. A scientific milestone in this area came in the 1960s when Dr. Jose Delgado demonstrated remote control over a charging bull. By connecting a radio antenna to electrodes inserted into the bull's brain, Delgado proved that the animal's aggressive impulses could be thwarted by electronically manipulating the bull's muscle reflexes.
Do you realize the fantastic possibilities if from the outside we could modify the inside? Could we give messages to the inside? But the beauty is that now we are not using electrodes.
In recent years,
emotions, intellect, personality, well, could be perhaps modified by this non-invasive technology.
Absolutely. So non-invasive technology, no electrodes at all involved in Havening, I'm pleased to say. I think it's a fascinating little video, and it just shows how far we've come. And that the guy who was in front of the bull, that was Delgado. He was a bit of a showman in his time, and he would stand in front of a charging bull and actually press the button to stop the bull charging at him. So quite a brave, some would say reckless man, but yeah, all intriguing stuff. Well, not watch that again. Okay. And a little quick snapshot history of where Havening came from. You'll recognise the guy on the left, I'm sure, which is Dr. Paul McKenna. That's Ron on the right, who you've seen in the video earlier, and that's them having a nice little meal out. The cat on the right is my daughter's cat, Marley. And the reason I show this is because Ron has a lot, but I should say Paul McKenna has a lot to be responsible for in terms of the emergence of Havening, because Ron met up with Paul McKenna in New York at one point, and they're walking around Central Park, and at this time, and this is 20 plus years ago, Paul McKenna said to Ron, you come across this tapping, Ron. You know, you do this tapping, it gets rid of phobias. And Ron Rudin, being a dyed-in-the-wool neuroscientist, was like, yeah, right. What's all that about? Don't believe that at all. He said, no, it works, and it works on meridian lines. And again, this just further compounded Ron's skepticism. But yeah, right, okay, meridian lines are a load of nonsense, isn't it? And so Paul McKenna said, buy the book, buy Roger Callahan's book, Tapping the Healer Within, and try it out. Just follow the protocol and see what happens. Now, Ron, thinking this was a complete waste of time, went back to his GP surgery, bought the book, and asked one of his fellow GPs if they wouldn't mind him trying something out. And he said, has anybody got a phobia? And this GP had volunteered. And she had a cat phobia, hence the picture of Marley. And Ron, to his great surprise, got rid of the phobia by using this tapping technique. It's like, what's going on here? What's all that about? And you know, he read all about all these different tapping points and, you know, how you should do the process. And it was all, you know, all explained in the book. But he thought, no, there's something clearly working here. But the explanation he didn't agree with. And he thought, well, no, there's more going on. He needed something that was very rapid. And in Ron's experience, and he started now getting excited about researching and seeing why on earth is this working. And throughout his research, he came across something called synaptic depotentiation, which was very rapid. And that's the removal of receptors, which pass a signal on that I feel rubbish, or I feel scared, or I feel angry, or whatever the emotion is. And it will link to bodily sensations as well, as we saw with Camilla, for example. So he did a lot more research. He worked with, instead of trying to find something tapping, because he thought, well, tapping is not the most comfortable of things. And also you've got to tap it in the right place. And so he started looking at the work of Tiffany Field and her exploration into massage. One of his fellow doctors had found that there were all sorts of different areas of research in the body where all sorts of interesting things were happening, that people were feeling much more pain, for example, from something that was, you'd think, well, that doesn't really deserve that much pain. So he had other people that he was associating with that were looking at similar subjects, which all got wrapped up in Haven in the end. He started looking at EMDR. Now, EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, you may well be already familiar, is an accepted form of therapy within the NHS and in a lot of places around the world, just like CBT is, cognitive behavioral therapy. So there was lots of research out there saying, yes, EMDR works, and that's how it got approved in all these health systems. And Ron was like, okay, well, so why does it work? Why does EMDR work? Because, you know, it's effective. It can be hard work for people, but it's effective. So he found a guy called Dr. Mel Harper, an American research scientist. And if you're not familiar with EMDR, part of the process, not just the process, but part of the process is that a therapist may, or practitioner may move their finger in front of your eyes and you follow it with your eyes, you keep your head still and you follow it. And it was discovered by accident by somebody called Helen Shapiro back in the 90s, that when she was very upset and she was moving her eyes back and forth, she felt better. And she started her own research journey on that. So EMDR is very, very well proven. And Mel Harper was trying to work out what was going on. So there was a range of different studies that Mel Harper was involved in, a number of other different scientists. And they were finding that in the studies that the eye movement was quenching or modifying fear memory traces. And then there were more studies coming out looking at brain stimulation. It was increasing the power of a naturally occurring low frequency rhythm in memory areas. So I'm not going to go into all the detail, but all of this was pointing to there's something real here as far as what the eye movement was doing. And then there was and this is after Ron's original book came out in 2010. There was a study in 2012, which was really, really helpful. And I don't expect you to be able to read all that, by the way. I'm going to summarize the key parts here. So this came out in 2012. And some key findings. The emotional aspects of fear memories could be extinguished by low frequency repetitive sensory stimulation. And that's partly what eye movement will do, but there's a lot more to it than that, which I'll talk about. We had this increase in power of the low frequency portion, which was the biological changes that we needed. And they were talking about certain parts of the body. Don't worry about the terminology here. We'll talk about this more later. But these receptors that they found were mediating this fear memory. And depotentiation, you might remember I talked about amygdala depotentiation technique. Depotentiation is removing the receptors so you didn't have the signal being sent further. So we're disrupting the memory network, and all this sensory input was quenching that fear memory network. So we had Ron's book came out in 2010, which basically, not all of that information was there because 2012 was after 2010, but it added to it when it was published. And Ron came up with a theory of how people are traumatized, how the coding happens. And then this revolutionary approach, which is the reversal of the encoding process. And that's what that book was all about. And Ron's on the right there. His twin brother, Stephen, is on the left. And both of them have been heavily involved. They're twin brothers, in case you haven't recognized. And Stephen's a dentist. So he, and a hypnotherapist as well. And so he was helping Ron from the very early days, developing his theories and trying it out on his own dental patients, for example, where there's plenty of phobia and all sorts of different things as well. So they looked into having a really nice approach. So using skin rather than eye movement or tapping, which was not the most comfortable of things and not so easy to apply. Anybody can do this. Really, really easy. So new research was coming out about sea fibers, and we feel so much in the skin. And they worked on how fast or how slow, what pressure you would apply. And generally it's about this sort of speed, about 10, 20 meters per second, but don't get too hung up on that. That's just a sort of ideal speed. And it says here, this is an original slide that I have from the Havening deck, if you like. Again, don't worry too much about this. I've seen people that do this and it still works. I don't recommend that, by the way, because you want to be sure that they are applying the touch. But some people apply it really firmly. Some people apply it very lightly. As long as they keep on applying it and you can see the changes, it's clearly working for them. And it's just this inbuilt system. We've been using it for thousands of years. If you think about the stroking of the arm, well, if you fell over as a child, somebody might have picked you up and gone, there, you'll be all right. It's okay. And it's just nice and soothing. Or it's a bit like having a nice hug. On the face, what do we do in the morning? Perhaps you might wake up and think, oh my goodness, oh, the things I've got to do today. Oh, or you get some shock news. Oh my goodness. It's a pacifier. Just like people do this. Or they go, oh. These are all pacifiers that we've been doing for a long time. And the hands, well, traditionally people talk about wringing their hands because they're nervous. Actually, it's the palms that are important. The backs of the hands don't make any difference at all. But the palms are extremely sensitive. Got lots and lots of receptors. Also in the fingertips as well, but we tend to talk about the palms in particular. So these are all natural things that we've been doing for a long time. Now, I've noticed there's a bit of chat. Oh, okay. That's all right. You don't need to see me, Laura. But
no, I was trying to subtly send you a message to say we can't actually see you very well. You were demonstrating the Havening touches, and all we could see really was the slide, and you were quite small. So I was actually trying to give you a nudge to take your slides down. But now you've mentioned it, then well, there we are.
Okay, thank you for that. Hopefully you've all picked up from the demonstration with Camilla the types of touch, and we'll all be doing that again in a moment. So, all right. I'm just going to check in, actually. Is everybody okay comfort-wise? Everybody need to take a 5-minute break, 10-minute break? Yep. Fabulous, Jim. So if we can get back for what, 25-2, does that sound all right for everybody? Yeah, lovely. All right, so we'll see you in a few minutes. Thank you very much indeed, everybody. I'll just pause the recording for so welcome back. Now I've got some breakout rooms planned for in a moment, but before we get into that, we're going to do a little bit of self-hating. So I'm going to share slide again. Let me just find out where it's gone. Here we go. What we're going to do, folks, is I'd like you to think about nothing deeply traumatic, please, but I'd like you to think about something that is an unpleasant emotional memory, and connect with that, and perhaps write down the score, or just at least remember it. And in a moment, I'll take you through self-havening, and we'll just do it as a general exercise. But what I'd like you to think, first of all, please, is just think of something that you'd like to just work on. You'd like to tone down, reduce down the emotional distress that it may cause you, and don't need to know anything about it at all. So think of something that's happened in the past that you don't feel very comfortable about, still got some kind of negative resonance for you. And just going to stop sharing the screen for a minute. Okay, has everybody got something to work on? Yeah? Okay, great, thank you. So what I'll ask you to do, please, is just apply whichever havening touch you feel most comfortable with. So whether that's hands on the shoulders and stroking down to the elbows, lift up to the top, or you can just gently stroke your cheeks or under the eyes, the forehead, or even do that little thing that Ron does, little touching there. If you feel brave enough, you could do the follically challenged one, entirely up to you. Or of course, you can do the palms. So whichever you feel comfortable, and just change them up as you feel need to. And feel free to try them out. If you've not tried them before, just have a go. And is there anybody who has any objection to walking in a forest or near the beach, or any sort of landscape issues? Because we don't need to go there if anybody's feeling uncomfortable with that. All right. Well, what I want you to do then, please, is if you want to shut your eyes whilst you're doing this, then please feel free to do so. Take yourself on a lovely walk. So where would you like to go? Go somewhere that you love to be, and just imagine that you're there now and you're walking through, perhaps it's well, I'm not going to give you too many images because I want you to create your own image in your own mind. Just imagine that you're in a lovely, peaceful place. Keep on applying the havening touch all the time. And every single step that you take, you're feeling a little bit lighter, a little bit more comfortable. Just really enjoying the experience. One footstep after the other. You're making contact with the ground. Feel the calmness as you place your foot. It transcends all the way through your body. You're just feeling really chilled out and very, very comfortable. Peaceful, safe, and calm as you walk through that place. And in your mind's eye, let's have a look around if you can at all those lovely things that make you feel just a little bit more relaxed, a little bit more comfortable. Take them all in and just enjoy the moment. Just love being there. Take it all in, appreciate it, enjoy it, and just feel really calm, comfortable. You know you're safe there. It's lovely and peaceful. Just look around. Are there any sights you can take in? Any nice colours, textures? Perhaps there's a little light breeze on your face. Maybe a bit of dappled sunlight, perhaps. And a lovely temperature, whatever your favorite temperature is, it's that temperature. As you walk through, just enjoy the moment. Feel happy, content in that space. Keep on walking through. Take a nice big breath in. Breathe out any tension that you're feeling, any tension anywhere in your body. Just keep walking through that space. Feeling calm, relaxed, and just soothed by that lovely, gorgeous environment. Just enjoy the moment. Don't hesitate from tearing you away from that lovely environment, but if you'd like to all unmute yourselves, keep on applying the Havening touch if you would when you've done that. And we're going to go around the screen, and you can anticipate what's going to happen next. Wendy, you happen to be here, so I'm going to pick on you first, I'm afraid. Debbie, you're over here, so you're second. And I'll work my way around the screen as it appears to me. So, Wendy, we're going to do something similar to what we did with Camilla. So I'd like you to think, we're going to think of animals this time. And when I say animals, it can be big, small, it can be an insect, it can be a bird, it can be whatever you like, reptile. But I'd like you to think of an animal, please, beginning with A. Say it out loud if you would, please.
Aardvark.
Aardvark, brilliant. Debbie, what about a B?
A bat.
Oh, bat's nice. And Brandy, you're underneath Debbie. What about C? Can you think of an animal beginning with C?
Crab.
Crab, lovely. And Phil, what about D?
Dog.
Dog, nice. And Jackie, have you got an E for us, please?
Elephant.
Elephant, classic. And Laura, F.
Frog.
Frog, nice. And Jennifer, have you got a G, please?
Gorilla.
Gorilla. Oh, I get some classics out tonight. And back to Wendy. And H, Wendy, please.
Hog.
Hog, okay. And Debbie, what about an I? More difficult ones, I think. How about a lizardy type thing?
Yeah. Oh, I can't think what it's called. No, iguana.
Iguana, well done. Brandy, what about J?
Jaguar.
Jaguar, nice. And Phil, what about K? Might want to go to K. Yeah, brilliant. I was going to say go to Australia for that one, but you beat me there. Jackie, what about L?
Lima.
Lima, oh, nice. And M for Laura.
Mouse.
Mouse, okay, lovely. And Jen, what about N?
I can't think of anything. Can't think of anything.
Let's go for O. Think of something beginning with O.
Okay, orangutan.
Orangutan, nice. And have you got an N at all, Wendy?
An newt.
Yeah, that'll do nicely. What about P, Debbie?
Panther.
Panther, okay, lovely. And oh, Q, you've got Brandy. Bit of a challenging one there. Maybe a thing that looks a bit like a chicken, slightly smaller version of a chicken, or similar to. You can't.
That thing that gives eggs.
Yes.
I don't know the name.
We'll go with a thing that gives eggs then, shall we? Okay. Phil, have you got a Q at all? Can you think of a Q?
Q. Quail.
Quail, that's the one I was after. Well done. And what about R, Jackie?
Rhinoceros.
Rhinoceros, nice. And S, Laura?
Snake.
Snake, that'll do. T, Jen?
Toad.
Toad, nice. Now, Wendy, you can have an imaginary animal for you if you wish to, but you might have some.
Thank you. Because I can't think of any other ones. So unicorn.
Unicorn is a special one. Fantastic. And Debbie, you've got a V?
I can only think of venison, but then it's not really alive, is it?
Well, that's still a kind of an animal, so we'll pass that one. Brandy, what about a W?
No idea.
Got a Y, maybe? Animal beginning with Y. It's getting harder and harder. Actually, Y is quite difficult. Let's go back to A. Try an A.
A what? A.
A. Yeah.
An animal.
Well, okay. Yeah. All right. That's cheating a bit. We'll let that go. Phil, you were very good with the whatever it was before. I can't remember what it was now. But what can you
Well,
think of can you think of a even an X or a Y?
Yak.
Oh, very well done. Yeah. Jackie, what about Z?
Zebra.
Zebra, classic. And Laura, what about a B for an animal?
Bird.
Bird. Okay, lovely. And Jen, C?
Cat.
Cat. Yeah. And Wendy, you can't have dog, by the way. But what about D?
Dinosaur.
Dinosaur. That's very good. Okay. E, Debbie?
Jackie said elephant. That's all.
Go for F if you're comfortable with an E.
Okay, elephant.
Okay. Okay. All right. Right, we're going to change things up now. And Brandy, I'm going to ask you for something you do in your spare time that you enjoy doing.
I walk the dog.
Walk the dog. Okay. Phil, you can't have walk the dog, but do you have something that you like to do in your spare time?
Horse riding.
Oh, horse riding. Lovely. Okay. Jackie, what about yourself?
Painting.
Painting. Oh, we'll have to talk about that later. Laura, what do you like to do in your spare time?
I know. I want to walk the dog.
Yeah.
I tell you what, sleeping. I love doing that in my spare time. Get me a nap.
All right. Jen, we're going to change things up slightly here again, and I'd like you to name me something, any kind of fruit, any fruit you like.
Melon.
Melon. And Wendy, got a fruit for me, please?
Berries.
Berries. And Debbie, got a fruit?
Mango.
Mango. And Brandy, got a fruit, please? Something
Banana.
Pear. Phil?
Passion fruit.
Oh, nice. Okay. Jackie?
Orange.
Orange. Laura, what kind of fruit you got?
Apple.
Apple. And Jen, another fruit?
Grape.
Grape. Okay. All right. Nice. All right, nice selection there. Let's just take a little pause there and rest. And you've probably got a little bit of a tingly feeling. Quite a nice feeling going around your body right now. That will be the delta waves and a whole load of neurotransmitters that are kicking around your system. If you think back to whatever you were working on, whatever that instance was, you don't have to share with me what it was. Could you put in the chat, please, your before and after? So if you're not familiar with the chat, it's just click on your chat button and just type in to all of us, so to everyone, what your number was before and then what it went to, please. So Phil from an 8 to 1, that's great. Jackie 9 to 2, Debbie 4 to 0, Brandy 7 to 1, Wendy 7 to 3, Jen 9 to 4. Lovely. I don't know if that's everybody. I'm not sure if that's everybody. But that's great. So that's a little bit of self-havening. So something that you can do on yourself whenever you need to. Works fantastically well with event havening very quickly like that. How long were we doing that for? It's 8:48 now, according to my clock. So yeah, 8 minutes, something like that. So there we go. Something to be enjoyed, and we'll do a lot more in different ways. So there are other forms of self-havening. You've used an event in this instance, but you can use self-havening in quite a few different ways, and we'll get to that later on in the course. But just a lovely thing to be able to do for yourself. And what I'm going to do now is we're going to go into rooms. In fact, before we go into rooms, I'm just going to share a few bits and pieces, just so you're kind of ready to go. We'll do feedback a little bit later if we have time. I'm just concerned with time is at the moment. Let's just think a little bit about. In fact, I'll do that one, I think, later as well. I'd like us to get into some event having, so you've got some experience of actually having a go. And that protocol that we talked about earlier, I'd like you to use that working on somebody else. So just as a quick reminder, we always plan distractions. This will be slightly different from what you've seen earlier, but don't worry, we'll get to the one I sent to you. We always want to plan distractions because if you have somebody who's very, very distressed, perhaps you're doing another form of havening, we can always go back to event havening to bring them down. It's a real go-to way of just stabilizing things and making sure that the client is perfectly okay. So always, please make sure that you plan distractions before you even start anything, so that if suddenly somebody has a panic attack, which can happen once they start thinking of something that bothers them, then you can immediately help them straight away. So have your distraction in your back pocket, just like I talked to Camilla about what she enjoys doing, what you enjoy doing. The process is that we activate people. So we ask them to think about the issue, bring all the senses into play if you can. We calibrate. So we get that subjective unit of distress out of 10. So 10 being horrible, 0 being nothing. And please use 0. Don't use 1. I've had quite a few people think, oh, I go 10 to 1. Well, 1, there's still something there for a lot of people. So get to 0 and mark it from 0. Then we apply the havening touch, whichever one they prefer to. We apply the distractions and talk about that. And so whilst they're talking about their favorite dog or their holiday or playing the brass band or whatever their distraction is, we've got the chemical reactions changing. And we try that when you're first starting, about 3 times is a good thing as a rule of thumb. And then check in, see how people are doing. So that SUD score hopefully has come down. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's stuck. And that happens too sometimes. And then we can perhaps do something different, and we'll get into that later on. But for the moment, just keep on going with event havening and until the client's either neutral about whatever it is that happened or they feel good. And that'd be great. And then we have a debrief and we talk about what's been going on. So that's the basics of what we're going to do, just as a quick refresher. Any questions before we get into it? Because I'm going to put you into a room in a moment. So just so you're aware, I'm going to put Phil in with Wendy to start with, and I'll join you in that room. So there'll always be someone in the background. We'll turn our cameras off so that we're not disturbing you, but we'll be in the background and making a few notes so that we can give you some constructive feedback afterwards. And please don't worry about making a mistake. This is what the training is all about. If you make a mistake here, it's a perfectly safe space. If something happened that was unhelpful for the client, injurious for the client, then we would step in, but that's highly unlikely, especially with event havening here. But we're there just for safety and making sure everybody's okay, and we can give you that feedback. So I'll be in with Phil and Wendy, and then I'm going to ask Laura to sit in with Brandy and Jackie, please. And Debbie, if you would sit in with Jennifer. And I know it'll be a little bit more challenging to give the feedback because you're going to be working with Jennifer, but we're going to swap all of these around as the course evolves. So sometimes it'll be me in with one person, sometimes it'll be Laura in with one person, and so on. So any questions about what we're doing? I will give you a time scale, by the way. We're on 5 to 9 almost now. I think it would be useful to, let's do, we'll just do 10 minutes each way and see how we get on, because I want to give some time for feedback and questions at the end. So we'll go 10 minutes each way, please, and that'll give you a chance to make a dent in their SUD score. May not be able to clear everything out, but who knows? We'll see how it goes. So what I'd like you to do, that formula that I sent before, and I'll put it up on screen again in a moment. We want you to really look at, so to choose the concept of havening to start with, just to give them an idea of what havening is. So it's essentially a psychosensory therapy, and it works on neuroscience. It's based on neuroscience. You don't have to talk about whatever it is that bothers you. If you want to talk about it, that's fine. If you don't want to, that's fine too. And we're looking to help you feel a little bit more comfortable. That's a way of saying it. You may have your own way of saying it, which is fine. Make sure that you start planning your distractions. Get those before you start anything at all. And ask, if you're in person, you would ask about, would you allow me to apply Haven in Touch to you? Do you want me to do that? You may decide that you're not going to do that at all, and it's all applied by the client, and you show them how to do it. So you demonstrate the 3 types, please. And then we have activation. We ask them to think about it, connect with it from all the point of view of the senses, and is there anywhere in the body that it connects with as well? We calibrate, so we have that score out of 10, and we have the body to measure with as well, by the way. And then we apply Haven Touch, whichever they feel most comfortable with, and again, give them permission to change that around if they wish to, so that they're not uncomfortable at any point. And then we'll just check in as things are going. Use those nice distractions that you've got, make it as pleasant or at least as neutral as you can, and then just keep on going. Check in every now and then. Watch the clock. We'll give you 10 minutes either way. So if you change over sort of halfway through, please, and get some kind of debrief if you can as well, how they're feeling emotionally in their body. And this is your first go, so don't expect that everything's going to be absolutely fantastic and 100%. So don't worry about that. Just have a go. Just have a go and get to feel how it feels. And I'll be very interested in your feedback later. And of course, you can ask any questions you like. So, any questions for anybody? Are you all okay, or is there any questions I need to answer? Just making sure I can see you all. No, fabulous. All right. So I'm going to put 20 minutes on the clock. So keep your eye out. There will be a clock in the corner, and there'll be very little time after that 20 minutes. There'll be 10 seconds. So you've got 10 seconds before it all goes back to the main room. If there's no other questions, I'm going to open the rooms now. So play nicely, have fun, and we'll see you in 20 minutes time, and look forward to your feedback. And Debbie and Laura, if you wouldn't mind, just take a few notes and I'll ask you for a bit of feedback when we come back to the main room as well. So we'll see you shortly. You should be getting an invitation on your screen now, and we should join room 1, and we'll see you later. Well, welcome back, everybody. And I'm just looking at the faces, and there's some very relaxed faces, which is all a good sign. There's some lovely progress in our room. So I'll kick off straight away just to give a little bit of feedback in the room that I was in, which was Phil and Wendy. And yeah, really nice work. I thought they both looked after each other very well. It was all very comfortable, very supportive. And I thought, Phil, you introduced, Phil worked with Wendy to start with as the practitioner, and you did a really nice little introduction on havening. You know, we're not going to do any harm here, don't have to pour our hearts out. So very much talked about the content-free side of things, talked a little bit about the psychosensory and being backed up by neuroscience. So that was all nice. One thing I'd really want you all to do is to get your distractions in first. So have those ready to go. And I'll give you a reason why. I worked with a young lad at a company a while back, and we'd already worked together once, and we'd had a great session, reduced his issues down, came back for the second session. We sat down in exactly the same conference room as we were in before, and all I said was, "How have you been getting on since last week?" He went into a full-blown panic attack. And so that's when you need these distractions, right? So fortunately, I knew that he was a bit of a gamer. So immediately I said, okay, imagine you're doing your gaming, you're in your chair, what are you playing? Call of Duty, or whatever it was. And I got him to start applying the touch, and within the minute, he was down-regulated and he was okay, he was out of it. So, but I knew that was a really good distraction. Now, if I'd asked him, what's your favorite country? What's your favorite animal? He might, I don't know, and still been in that loop, if you like. So, and that was a comment I'd apply to both the people in the room there. So just to think about and get that out very early on, please, so that you can immediately help your client if they're in that instance. We started at an 8 for Wendy. We didn't find out what it was, and that was fine and brilliant. And we ended up with a 4 within the 10 minutes. So that was all really good progress. And really nice demo from Phil as well on the different types of havening touch. And I also really liked the gentle humor that you brought in, Phil. That seems to be very much your personality, the way you come across to people. And you talked about the applications, and you know, if Wendy was upset at night, you know, rather than barging into a partner, you might just do this. And we talked about the practicalities of moving around and not having to take your glasses off if you don't need to. So that was all really nice. And the distractions worked out really well. We talked about places, and I got a bit of a tour around Wales to start with, and then we went a bit further afield, which is great. And don't forget to check in with the body at the end. I know you're running a little bit short of time, and there wasn't a huge amount of time in any place, but checking in first with the body and how you're feeling, and then at the end, sometimes people don't relate as well to numbers. Most people do, but sometimes you'll find people that don't really relate very well. Is it a 5 or is it an 8? I don't know. So in that instance, you've got to back up with the body. So that's always really useful. But really lovely first go. Well done, Phil. And you know, we've got a nice result for Wendy. So I thought that worked out really well. So switching over to Wendy. So Wendy was the practitioner. We started with Phil at a 9. Again, we didn't know anything about the detail, and that's fine. We didn't need to know that. Again, we didn't get any distractions, unfortunately. And I'm sure you just benefited from Phil's lovely explanation. We didn't really explain what havening was, Wendy, and this is your opportunity to do that. All right, so that when you're in front of a client, I know Phil knows a little bit about it already, but it's your opportunity to practice. Make any mistakes if you're going to make them, just refine it from there. So please practice that, and it'll eventually just roll off the tongue, and it'll be absolutely natural. And you chose to use places like Phil had with the distractions. I was wondering where we were going to go. We ended up in North Borneo, which sounds absolutely delightful. But it turned out, because we hadn't researched a little bit about the distractions, that Phil was suddenly with his ex-wife. And I thought, okay. And that's why you do the research, because it could have been that suddenly he's off at a tangent, bringing back a a not pleasant memory or an unhelpful memory. So that's why we work out these distractions beforehand. But it worked out really well. He had happy memories, fortunately, for that whole time in Borneo. And we got some lovely distractions. I really like the way he brought in all the senses. You know, as Phil went up the mountain that he was talking about, and, you know, I got a real sense of being there. Then we talked about food. And so it was really nice distractions. And then you worked on fish. The fish one, again, when you do your research, you can find out how well Phil knows his fish, for example. And Phil knew his fish, but we stumbled over a couple of letters. So the point of the distraction is that all you're doing is tying up working memory. So we don't want to stress people out with it, with an unpleasant thing. We want something that they can talk about really easily, but they have to think about it a bit. So we don't want them stumbling, we don't want them feeling uncomfortable. And it worked okay. It wasn't anything really wrong with it at all. So don't feel as though you did badly because you didn't. But if you'd done the research with him in the first place, you know, what do you love to do in your spare time? And Phil might say, well, I love my rugby. For example, you may hate rugby, I don't know, but if you like rugby, you might have said, oh yeah, well, I go to every game wherever you live, Phil, and I follow the team, and I know people in the team, and he's really bound up in it, and he can just talk about it forever if he wants to. However, all that said, great result. So from a 9, we went down to a 3. Fantastic. So, you know, both really nice results for the short space of time that you had. And I think if your first effort's really good, well done. Well done. How did you feel yourselves? Were there any questions from what happened, or things you'd like to make comment on, constructive feedback for your partner?
I thought Wendy did a great job personally. And I know what you mean about the fish, but actually from my perspective, having to reach for some of those letters, trying to figure out a fish. Yeah, there were one or two times when it felt a little frustrating, but actually, from my perspective, it all seemed part of the process.
Yeah, it's a fine line. You don't want to overstretch somebody.
Reach for something, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
If it would be too easy, I think I would have just thought, well, yeah,
yeah.
So, but yeah, I thought it was great. Very good. I was surprised when we did the number at the end and I came out with a 3. I was thinking, can't be a 3. Surely not that fast. I thought, no, it is.
Yeah. So it can be absolutely amazing sometimes. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer. It's a little bit more complex, but yeah. Take them when they come. Fantastic.
From my perspective, I was just wanting to get the process. So I'd forgotten all of the other bits that needed to go on there. So I was like, oh, I've got to get the process done.
It still worked really well. But when you're working with a client, obviously it's going to be much more informative and taking care of them to describe what's going on and give them the right expectations and make them feel safe and that they've been looked after. I mean, you looked after Phil really well, but if it's somebody you've not met before, then you know, it might be a slightly different instance. So, right, I'll shut up and let's move on to a different room. Laura, do you want to give some feedback, if you would, on I can't remember who was in your room off the top of my head. Who was it?
Brandy and Jackie.
Brandy and Jackie, that's it. Yeah, fantastic.
So, yeah, again, 2 very good results. Great first attempt for both. And again, I said similar things. Plan the distractions up front so that you know exactly what it is you're going to talk about before you activate the memory and before you get the SUD score. So that you've got something in your back pocket if you need it. Descriptions of havening, they just come with time. So yeah, both of them were really, really good at building the distractions when they were doing them. So asking the client lots of relevant questions. What are you seeing? What are you hearing? What are you feeling? What's the temperature? All of that really good stuff. So I thought that was really good. When Brandy was working on Jackie, we started at a 6, we got to 0. So that was really, really good.
Nice.
And when Jackie was working on Brandy, we started at a 7, we got down to a 2. Good progress on both. But I think it's, you know, as I was saying to both of both Brandy and Jackie, it's the first attempt, right? So you know you're just starting to be thrown in the deep end, and you know, and you takes a bit of time just to get your head around the process and the order to do things in. So it just comes to practice. So it's nothing difficult.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just a process of time. The more you do it, the more you feel comfortable with it, and the better and better you'll get. So yeah, fabulous. Any thoughts from the ladies in the room? Any feedback for your partners, or any just comments on how it felt for you?
I was a little bit, I guess, not literally thrown in the deep end, but I was a bit unnerved because I hadn't received an email with the protocol on. So Laura luckily sent it to me. So I felt when it was my turn to do brandy, that I was trying to read the protocol for the first time whilst trying to do it. So I jumped from 1 to 3, forgot to ask about distractions, but brandy was brilliant with me anyway.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry you didn't get that, Jackie.
That's okay.
But sounds like you coped very admirably anyway. Well done. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. And any other thoughts from you, Brandy?
No, just it feels like the event is just, it feels like looking at a movie far away. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Who was saying is Camilla is like after fast phobia, it's a movie very far away that is still there, but it just moves.
Yeah. Yeah. There's lots of different ways that people will perceive it afterwards. We're all different, and this situation is different. Sometimes people talk about it was a vivid color image, and now it's black and white, a bit grey and a bit grainy. So you get that type of comment, or it's at a distance, as you described, or sometimes they can't think of the detail at all.
Yeah,
that's rarer, but it can happen. So yeah, we get lots of different types of reactions. So again, to explain to a client in the future about, if they're saying, well, what's this hazing thing? What happens? Because you ask those questions, you get a real depth of experience as to, if they ask a specific question, does this happen? I had a client 5 years ago that this happened to. You can give that confidence and reassurance, and give your expertise and experience on that. So always good to ask those questions. Fabulous. So let's, I'm just conscious of time. Let's jump into the final room. So Devi, you were with Jen. So would you mind giving us a little bit of feedback from your room?
Yeah, it was a nice quiet room, just the two of us. So Jen was a bit concerned at the start because she hadn't finished writing down everything on your slide.
Okay.
So we went through the different steps. And then Jen worked on me.
Okay.
And I think she realizes that she went quite fast. And like in the other rooms, then yes, it would have been even nicer if we picked out the distractions at the beginning.
Yeah.
She did a great job of getting me into the scene, feeling that. And then it's like, oh yeah, now what these are the. So we did everything, but not necessarily in the best order, which I think Jen was very much aware of when we looked at that. So that was, but yeah, great use of humour. Took me on a nice beach. She didn't realise, but we were in Kenya. So yeah, that was nice. Bit better than some of the beaches we got around here. And it worked. She got me from a 4 to a 1. So yeah, it was a good job.
Excellent. Thank you for that, David. Lovely. Well, sounds like you've all made a brilliant start. So well done, everybody. And thank you for the feedback, Laura and Debbie. And I don't want to hold you up any longer than we need to. We've just crossed the 9:30 threshold, and you may or may not think that's gone quickly, but it tends to go very quickly, and you're going to do a lot and achieve a lot on this course. So buckle up for when we're in Cardiff, and there's lots more to do. So well done. You'll feel slightly different tomorrow, by the way. When you wake up, you're going to whatever it was that you worked on. So you've worked on a couple of things today. You'll wake up tomorrow and you'll feel different now, but you'll feel maybe even a little bit more different tomorrow in a positive way. So yeah, embrace that, and I'll be interested in your feedback when we meet up as to how that's all changed. Does anybody have any questions from this evening? Anything I haven't covered or explained atrociously, or you need extra information? Anything like that at all? Fabulous. Well, until Cardiff then, eh? So thank you for all your input this evening. It's always so much better when people really get into stuff and go for it. And you've all done that admirably. So huge thanks to Debbie and Laura for support tonight. And I'm really looking forward to meeting you in 3D in early April. So have a safe journey. I'm probably traveling the furthest, I think, am I? Because
I'm from Brighton.
Ah, Brighton. Okay. Yeah, you're coming further than me. Yeah, you're further than me. Yeah, I'm coming from Derby way. So yeah, so safe journey in particular to Brandy, but safe journey to everybody else. Keep well, and look forward to meeting you in April. And I'll be dropping you some other information, and look forward to seeing you then. So thank you, well done. And I'll send you a link to the slides, send you the slides that we've seen today, and also the video from today. I'll record that and put it on a private site on you, listed page on YouTube, so you can look at that as many times as you like in the future. So all right, if there's no further questions, enjoy the rest of your evening, whatever's left of it, and look forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you very much, Mark.
Take care, everybody. See you soon.
Bye-bye.
Thanks ever so much.
Bye.
Bye bye.